Welcome back, my brave and beautiful humans, to another episode of Soul Hygiene. I have such a special guest with me today. I was introduced to her about, I think we talked about a month and a half ago, and she's such a light, and she's also a veteran of the Marine Corps, and now she's a business and lifestyle strategist. So I'm super excited, you guys, for you to hear what she has to say. She's created a program that is, from what I understand, is so wonderful. I have not delved into it at all, but we did kind of discuss it the last time we were talking. But such a light and a positive person that I think if we hear her story and the things that she has overcome and the obstacles she's gone through, you're going to be amazed at just the strength that a person can have. So I'm super excited, and I'm just going to turn it over to Miss Tami and let her just guide us through this episode. I'm welcome.
Thank you so much, TJ. Like, I'm so excited to be here. You and I just totally hit it off, and it's the same thing. Like, I see the light in you too, and to be able to come in front of your audience and be able to share who I am and what I do in an effort to, hopefully help somebody else today is everything. So,
I love that.
yeah, so I'm excited. Yeah, so I'm a business and lifestyle strategist and Marine Corps veteran and founder of One of the Few. And so, I believe that we are all unique in our own beautiful ways, and that if you really want to get out there and do something really special, that you can do that too. So yes, I am a one of the few because I am a female Marine, and we are definitely a rare breed. But anybody can decide that they want to be one of the few of something. But it's going to take, a lot of hard work. It's going to take discipline. It's going to take courage and commitment and kind of shutting out the rest of the noise and really building yourself up to go do that.
I absolutely love that because as you were talking, I was thinking, you're right. Anyone can be one of the few in their field. And especially in this generation, I look around and I feel like everybody wants to be the same. It's almost like the dam has broke open from a river, and they're what they believe is flooding into other fields. And no one is unique. And in this day and age, we have to have people who will stand for truth, for honor, for courage, and be a light, even if we have to stand alone. So I absolutely love what you said there. If you can just tell everybody a little bit about your background and, the past years, or you can delve into your marine life if you want to, but just excited for people to get to know you.
Yeah, so I grew up with a single mom. We lived in a trailer. In hindsight, I realized like just how broke we actually were. But when you're a kid, you don't know. You just ask for the good cereal and they say no, and you don't know why. But I had a good childhood, and but when it came to like schooling and everything, like I was an honor student, but we didn't have money for college, and so nobody told me it was okay to go to college and not know what you wanted to do. So to me, it felt like this big expensive thing, and I really didn't have a lot of good guidance. And so I was always intrigued by the military, and I wasn't looking at it as like my only way out or anything like that. I wanted to serve my country. And so, I wanted to go into the Air Force initially because in my head, back then, we had all the astronauts. It was big. Everybody wanted to be astronauts. And so in my head, I thought, okay, well, what's the best way to get there? The Air Force. And I had the Air Force recruiter tell me that I could be a secretary or a cook. And I was just floored. I'm like, well, I don't want to do that. And the Army recruiter, he wouldn't leave me alone, but he was kind of creepy. And then in the Marines, I always just thought of these like crazy Vietnam veterans, and as a 17-year-old girl in high school, I didn't see myself fitting in with that. But then my boyfriend, his sister was a Marine, and she came to visit. She was stationed in Hawaii. She's beautiful. She's loving life. And I thought, oh, I can do that. And so I joined the Marine Corps on New Year's Eve, my senior year of high school, and went in. I did 4 years. It was a great experience. I'm so happy that I chose the Marine Corps because now that I'm older, I look back on how that shaped me mentally, and the different things that I've done and accomplished in my life has been because of the way that I think. And I wouldn't have had that otherwise. Um, and so but I didn't want to make a career out of it. It really is a hard way to live. And so I got out and I went on to work at an engineering firm. I didn't have any computer experience other than doing my resume, but they hired me anyways. And this was when the internet was coming up. And so I just started, I put my head down and I was grasping things pretty quickly. And so they kept me, and I ended up being there for 20 years, became a software developer. Myself and my team, we wrote software that processed over $1 billion. And so it was really an incredible journey. But then at 19 years at that company, one of my coworkers died by suicide. And I had worked with her for 19 years, and it was such a shock. And then that on top of one of my dear friends died with ovarian cancer at a young age. And so just back to back, it just made me, I was already kind of craving a change. I just felt like there was something more out there for me, and I didn't know what that looked like. And so those two things just made me decide, like, okay, life is short. If I really want to go after something different, like, now's the time to do it. And so I walked away from that job at 44 years old, and I shocked everybody because I'm positive. I'm a great team player. I just got a raise and a promotion, but I'm like, thanks, I'm out of here. And so I just knew I wanted to help people and do my own thing. And so I stepped out and I started learning. I was so hungry for everything in the online space, learning all about social media and doing live videos and all of that. And it's just been a really exciting journey. But from day one, like, I knew that I wanted a personal brand because I wasn't sure how I wanted to help people, but I knew that if I focus on me and my skills and my gifts and what I wanted to create in the world, then it wouldn't matter because people would be connected to me.
Yeah, that's kind of what soul hygiene is. So I know that we had talked about that when we first met, kind of how much in common we have and how different we are in certain ways. But were there, I know you said you grew up with a single mom, and I was a single mom of three kids for a while, and in between traumatic relationships, I was still a single mom. But did you find that growing up with a single mom kind of shaped you as well, made you stronger, made your character, you know, how did that shape you growing up with a single parent?
It was really interesting because my mom, she was loving and laughing. Like, we laughed a lot growing up, and which was really helpful. But she also wasn't there a lot. Like, she was, she'd be working. She was a bartender. She'd be doing income taxes during tax season, and so she'd be crazy hours and drag me along. And then so my brother, he was a little bit older, so he would be the one like cooking meals and so, in a lot of ways, I think that forced me to be independent. But I don't know, I guess I never really thought about the time. You just, she's there when she's there. And if she's not, you're like, okay. And so I had that support system. But in hindsight, I realized, my mom passed away when I was 28. She had emphysema. And so now, as I've gotten older, I look at her as a woman and the challenges that she had gone through and how much she was, doing to provide for us and how strong she was. And, when you're a kid, you just do what you do. So, my heart, I have a new compassion for my mom, and I feel like I know her differently now as a woman.
I see that in my kids, and that's why I asked, because now that they're older, my oldest, my daughter is going to be 30 next year, and she has said at times, she had to make dinner for her two brothers, and she had to kind of be that mommy. And now I see that kind of shaped her. Now she's the most caring and nurturing, you know, person and loving. And but not being around, I had to work, I had to provide for them. They've told me it was difficult, you know. There are good things and there are bad things that they kind of took from that, growing up in that. But that's really, I always find that I always like to get a perspective when people grow up with single parents, just because I'm still around, my kids are still young. I had kids really young, so just seeing, a different perspective on that really, you know, it gives me hope that my kids are okay.
Yeah. Well, when I was first considering leaving my corporate job and, I had all this security around that, I knew exactly what to expect, with my income and, benefits and all that stuff. And I had worked with a coach. I had met her through a leadership retreat that I'd gone to through work, actually. And she had recommended that I read this book called Calling in the One. and it was about relationships and finding your one. But she said to read that book and do the exercises as if you're calling in your ideal job or career. So I got this, but then after I did it, or shortly after I bought it, I had gone through a breakup. So then I decided to read it from a relationship standpoint. And a lot of it comes from like looking at your parents and how they view relationships. And it was at that point where I realized that my mom, like all growing up, she had had kids young and she had gotten married young. And so she kept wanting me to go see the world. She kept saying, yeah, she would like, if I had a boyfriend in high school, she'd kind of start to panic a little bit. And I could see that. And she just didn't want that for me. And so I realized as I'm reading this book that I had become this independent woman, joined the Marine Corps. I had traveled all over. And it was because of those little subliminal messages that it didn't feel like this profound message that she was sending out. It was just the little jabs. And so that shaped my life. And it was another way of eye-opening and looking at my mom, differently.
I've talked to other people and I feel like you don't understand until you get older what your parents did, especially if you grew up in a single home or even a good home or even in a traumatic circumstance. You know, you don't understand how that shapes you till you get older and you're an adult and you're having to make adult decisions. Definitely, I can definitely relate to that. And the one thing my mom always used to tell us when we were younger, my brothers and I, was, I don't care if you're ever rich. I don't care if you ever, I don't want you to be a movie star or nothing like that. If you just have kindness and compassion and empathy for other people, that's going to take you further than being rich or being all of that. So, and that's something I will never forget. I taught my kids that, and it served me well throughout life. So I think, having those little tidbits that our parents tell us and we remember it, it really, I almost tear up because my parents are now older and I'm their caregiver. So, just remembering those things just really makes my heart happy. But that was a little sentimental thing. But can you tell, the 4 years that you were in the Marines, were there any stories, obstacles, or anything that you really had to have strength and courage to get over? Or was it through the Marines that you really, life really started for you?
It did really start because I grew up, we moved around a lot when I was growing up. But then once I got into high school, my mom promised that I wouldn't move. So that 4 years, even though it was a little bit later, was like my hometown. But it really opened up my eyes because I didn't have other members in the military. My brother did the National Guard briefly, but otherwise, there wasn't like this driving force to go into the military. It was just me just randomly picking the Marine Corps. And so getting there, when I first got in and boot camp, it's just so terrifying. I'm like, oh my God, what did I get myself into? And I wanted out. Like, I was just like, this was a huge mistake. But it's just because they're screaming in your face. Like it's, totally different. But once I actually got out of boot camp and got to my first school, I loved it. And I found that, the ratio was 200 men to every woman. And so
Wow.
um, you had to just own who you were, be kind, but also, kind of stand your ground. And I know that there is like a lot of trauma with female Marines. Like I'm in different groups, and I hear some of their stories, and it just breaks my heart, and it makes me really grateful for the men that I had served with. And I've because I'm always doing like self-awareness and personal development. I've asked myself, like, was I doing something that commanded that respect? Or, was I just lucky? And so I don't, regardless, it was such a gift that time in my life. And I found that anytime I was in a new situation, I had to first like if like somebody hits on you, you'd be like, they'd assume that, okay, well, you must be gay because you turned me down, or they'd assume like because you're female, you sleep around. And so you have to, you turn them down. And then finally they just realize like, no, she's really cool. She already has a boyfriend. And then you just become friends. And so I really just built this, brotherhood. And if anything, somebody went out of line, my brothers would stand up for me to them. And so, uh, yeah, I was just really blessed with the people I served with.
Wonderful. I like hearing good stories like that because you hear the stories of the women who struggled, in the military or were teased or, put down. But I love hearing those stories, that you did have a band of brothers to help you. So that's wonderful. I love that. So um, I know that you created this, I think it's Empower brand.
Yeah, so
Um,
it's called the Empowered Brand, your personal playbook to a standout identity. And it really is built on the foundations of personal leadership, because I feel that you think of leadership, you always think of leading a team, but now with social media, we all have that opportunity to be a leader of these communities and people that are craving these messages. And you can, stand out and share your story. And I always like try to take those stories and figure out what the lesson is, because maybe somebody else could learn from that lesson. And so I built this playbook. I wanted it to be that where I could build a person up and make them feel empowered and make them feel strong and make them see all the ways that they can uh, really just lean into their strengths and stop worrying so much about self-doubt or the ways they're inadequate or the skills they don't have. And so I started looking at how I had lived my life and got to the things and done the different things that I had done over the years. And I thought, well, what was I doing? And so I had to build that framework on what I did and do it in a way where not only am I combining that personal development, but it's also for my 2 decades in tech. And how could I pull in tech tools so that way I get people out of the emotional side of it and you start looking at the data a little bit. And so I bridge that gap to speed up the process for them. So yeah, it's been a labor of love, something that I've wanted for a long time, and I kept like spinning around. It's kind of like the little eggshell or the shells, you don't try to guess where the ball is. And I finally got it all to line this year, so I'm excited.
you got all your ducks in a row. You
Yes.
actually have your ducks in a row. Well, you're the first person I've talked to that does, so that's awesome. No, I love that because that's kind of what soul hygiene is about. And I love that what you've done is basically take that in, you want to encourage people. I know that we're so stuck in this victimized mindset in this society where whether it's we've put ourselves there or we've actually had trauma done to us, we use it as a tool to get attention instead of using soul hygiene and soul scrubbing to get out of it and have a better life.
Mhm.
And use our strength and use our courage and use all these, attributes that are within us. So I love that you've created that because it truly is, this generation needs empowered more than anything right now. So that's absolutely, when you told me about that when we were talking before, I was like, that's so amazing. And how could people find this program? How can they get in touch with you if they want to, maybe bring you on a project or, tell everybody a little bit about, I guess I'm trying to say, I know you're a business strategist, lifestyle strategist, right? But this program is so important that I just want people to know about it, know how to contact you, know how to get in touch with you. Just, my listeners, when I am so excited about something that has to do so closely with soul hygiene, I just want everyone to know about it. So
Yeah.
please,
Well,
please tell them your information.
no, I really appreciate that, because I feel like, we're all personal brands, whether you're online or offline. Like, it's not all about social media, but it's just how you show up. And the only way you're going to show up with this powerful presence is if you really build yourself to be able to do that. And that is looking at those hard truths of the things that you've done
Right.
and overcome and to take that. So you can find me at my website, TamiMcVay.com. And I assume you'll have it linked on the YouTube, but and so there they can, sign up for an email list. And, I share my mentor tips just to keep your head in the game, and to keep you reminding how strong you really are. But then there you can also find on how you can become one of the few with my Empowered Brand Playbook.
Wonderful. Do you have an email address or can they just go to the website and get contact with you?
Yes, it's just Tami at TamiMcVay.com. Easy enough. And always
Wonderful.
people. Yes. Yes.
Well, I want to tell you that I really do believe that you are a natural leader. When I first talked to you, I was in awe of the presence that you bring. Like you can tell your energy through a screen, that there is courage and there is this strength that you convey. So I appreciate that. I appreciate when I get to talk to women who are like that, um, especially ones who just have this purpose to help other people and empower other people. So I appreciate you, and I appreciate you being on the show. And hopefully we can get you back on here, because I love having people on here more than once, just to tell us and catch up and see where you're at. So anything else you want to add before we end the show?
No, I feel like it all comes down to leading by example. And I think that we can all do better in some area. And so for me, I'm always working on making myself better so that way I can help more people. And if we all did that, it just becomes this massive snowball effect. So I truly appreciate you for having me on here and letting us banter back and forth in an effort to
Yes.
help people. And yeah, I'd love to come back and have more conversation.
Wonderful. Everybody heard that. She's going to be coming back for another show. So I'll hold you to that too.
Right.
Well, thank you so much for being here. And thank you, everyone, for joining us for another episode of Soul Hygiene. We'll see you later.